So we're going to do the side seams. Or sorry, no, we're not. We're going to do the shoulder seams on this one because I'm going to show you how to do a sleeve. There you go, the shoulder seams are done. Now this bodysuit is going to have sleeves on it. With sleeves, there are two main ways of attaching the sleeve to the bodice. Both ways are going to involve sewing the shoulder seam first. One is going to involve sewing the side seam first. So I'm going to do the one that just the shoulder seam to start. So you're going to lay out the bodice in a way that you're going to see the armhole you're applying to. Here's one sleeve. And honestly, sleeves are a lot easier if you bond the lining when it's involved. But we're just going to be chaotic here and not do that. So when you lay it all together, you're going to fold your sleeve in half to find the midpoint. Pin the midpoint to your shoulder seam. Now in very rare cases, the midpoint might not line up with the shoulder seam, in which case your pattern is probably going to be marked for where to line up. However you want to line your seam up, your sleeve up to the main bodice, just pin it there. I hope I'm being clear. If not, by all means comment on here and ask me and I will clarify. So you're going to go to one side and take all 4 layers in one hand. Straighten things out and we're just going to sew the beginning part of that seam. Now I use a serger for everything like this. You can do a sewing machine with a zigzag also. It's all good. So once you get a bit of a seam established, you're going to make sure you've got all the layers together and stretch everything to match. And then you're going to sew all the way up to the pin. Now the big thing is make sure nothing is bunching up underneath. You want to just be sewing through those 4 layers. And then as you get to the center, you take the pin out. You find your other lining and front piece. In this case, it's bonded. And again, you just sandwich all 4 layers together. Line everything up, stretch it to match, and sew. And there you've got the seam sewn on. I find this is the easiest way to do a sleeve. Anyways, what you do then is, see the loose lining is kind of a pain here. So you're gonna fold it in half, line everything up together at the sleeve, like at the cuff. Again, pin it if you feel that's necessary for you. Start sewing. Line everything up at the underarm seam here. Line everything up and just sew. And keep trying to like line your seam up on top of each other here. When you get to the underarm part, you're going to sew it straight like this. Just straighten everything out. And then line everything up at the bottom edge of the seam. Like the leg opening. Again, stretch everything to match. And sew together. Then you can turn that inside out and you've got a sleeve set in. Now for the other way we're going to do a sleeve, I probably shouldn't have flipped that out to show. So for this way, you need to sew the side seam as well as the shoulder seam. So you're going to gather all 4 parts of the seam. And pin it if you feel that's necessary. So now that you've got that side seam and shoulder seam done, you're going to set this aside for a minute and you're going to sew your sleeve together. Again, can't stress this enough. If you can bond your lining to the spandex, you're going to have an easier time with this, because then you're only sewing 2 pieces of the fabric together instead of trying to get all 4 lined up. Okay, so now that you've got that seam sewn, here, flip your sleeve right side out. And while it's right side out, find the halfway point. So your seam's one side, your halfway point's there. Just stick a pin at the halfway point. Now your halfway point is going to be the shoulder. That's going to attach to the shoulder seam. You're going to feed the cuff end into your sleeve opening, like this. That halfway point, that's the top of the sleeve, you're going to pin to your shoulder seam or wherever you're lining it up to, if it's somewhere other than the shoulder seam. And then you're just going to hold the sleeve seam next to your side seam, like this. And as you can see, you've got everything all lined up together. Now you're just going to sew around that seam. Again, just make sure everything's stretched to match. Sewing through all 4 layers at all times. Flipped under there. That is how you inset a sleeve. Now for the most part they look pretty much exactly the same. This one has a smoother transition this way, but it's just a matter of which you prefer doing. I prefer the first way. So that's how you apply a sleeve, 2 different ways. So now we're going to hem the cuffs. I like to do a serge around the edge before flipping it. You could just flip and zigzag if you want. It's spandex, it doesn't ravel. So again, just make sure everything's lined up and that you're going through all layers. In this case, it's only 2 layers because you're just doing the edge. I use a wider stitch on this one. Or longer stitch, I should say. And you're just serging around the edge. Now you can just serge the edge before you sew the seam of sew the sleeve up. I don't really like doing that. I think you get a nicer, more even edge if you do it once it's sewn. So we'll do that to the other side. Switching out machines. I like to have the right side facing out and flip it and just sew it to the inside like that. I find that's easiest. You can flip it inside out and pull it over here, over your arm. I don't bother. So just and just make sure you're folding through both layers and that you're not leaving lining behind, or else it's going to pucker. There you go, one cuff. I'll do the other one. And just make sure you're folding both layers. You can just press it out. And you've got 2 hemmed sleeves.